a little higher today.
No, I was saying, I was like, Amit crushed it with the title today. Stocks were a little higher today.
Bro, there is a psychological effect
10
that the title is so bare that people just click. You know what I mean? Like those titles on YouTube, like I dated this girl. Like that's it. Like I'll click on that shit. I want to see like what's going on.
if you're
Like,
Mr. Beast.
yeah, man, that's true. Mr. Beast. Okay, so chat, help us. Like, what could we have clickbaited the title with? What could we have talked about? I mean, Palantir. We could have said Palantir is up.
How to lose a girl in 10 minutes on Threads.
Bro, she slows and responded.
Yeah, I told you, man. I told you. You're never gonna get a response.
Oh my gosh. By the way, for those that are here before we start the show, so Carlos and I had a conversation after the podcast yesterday, and he gave me his master plan on how I could have got that girl. If you didn't catch the pod, go watch it from yesterday. It was genius. Like it was absolute. Like I would have paid good money for that. Like it was so good of a plan. And I'm like, oh my god, like this is genius. This is way better than trying to message her on Threads. Like,
yeah, dude. Well, we still have a shot.
Just remember, Carlos got Vitaly married. All right,
that's true.
That's the level of game Carlos has.
Right, that's my resume. That's my resume. I got Vitaly, an awesome chick. If you know his wife, she's an awesome lady. So right, yeah, that's true.
Vitaly's a good guy too. Vitaly's a good guy too, but Carlos got the magic, you know. So.
That's funny.
I forgot Vitaly's probably not going to make it tonight. He said he was working late, so yeah, he might not make it today.
Did he respond on the?
No, but he told us yesterday he's working late this week, so probably not.
Well, I guess all right. So we're gonna all right. So let's talk about how the stocks were up a little bit today.
Dude, we're in fucking bizarro world when it comes to the markets right now.
What is going on?
Okay, why? Dude? Why are we in bizarro world? Because the market has tanked 4% at 9:40ish, and by 10:14, we were headed to the moon. So
what are you saying? The S&P?
Everything.
Yeah, I think it's more there's a big I told you guys, like last time we were speaking, retail participation is starting to grow, and that portion is visible because I created a portfolio of just retail names because I wanted to gauge like how much retail interest is there, right? So these are usually the retail friendly names. So let me just go through some of them and tell you how much they gained today. At the top of the list, Carvana. Carvana was up 16%. Okay.
What?
Now, yeah, and it's still up after hours as well. And if you look at it in a 1 month, it's up 70% in 1 month. 281% in the last 3 months. Okay,
Carvana was almost stocks as you're talking.
Was there something on like Wall Street bets for this or what?
I don't know.
What's the catalyst for this?
I think it's retail participation.
Bro, it's up 500% in 6 months.
Yeah. Carvana was almost bankrupt. You know. Then you have Upstart is another one now. Upstart, of course, we're getting our Twitter followers, some of them who came, basically some of them.
No, just saying, people, the Twitter hate is coming. Like we need to switch the Threads because people are being too mean to us.
No, it's all right. I'll take it. It's fine. But Upstart is another favorite. Upstart is up almost 148% in like the last month and a half. Last 3 months. Last month they were up a sizable 21%. Affirm, I'm not going to go through each one and how much they're up, but Affirm was up 8% today. SoFi, which is, of course, retail heavy, is up 8% today. Palantir, 6%. Open Door, 7%. Skills, which is that company that Kathy Wood bought a long time ago. That's like, I tried Skills, by the way. It was not even video games. It's like gambling with video games. And it's that was up today, almost 5%. Look at it like on a 5-month or 6-month basis. Probably just a month, yeah. Nikola was up 4% today. A fucking obvious fraud.
That is not even. Okay, that tells you right there that this is absolute nonsense. It's people.
Yo, I should have invested in Nikola. 91%. Tesla's not giving 91% in a month.
Homie.
Nikola?
You invest in Nikola. I'm buying a plane ticket and I'm gonna come to your house, bro.
Bro, 91%, Carlos. Though
I'm gonna come to your house.
Oh, Vitaly.
What's up?
Vitaly, Nikola's up 91% in the past month.
I know. I bought in.
Okay. Why didn't you tell me? I should have bought in too.
I can't tell you every stock I buy.
No,
you gotta join the Patreon.
He didn't buy no
No,
Nikola.
what he's saying is it went up 91% because he bought in. That's how fucking small the market cap is right now.
I bought the whole company.
The whole fucking company.
Yeah.
A firm
So
was
the
up today, you said?
Yep. Affirm was up 8% today. And these are fundamentally unprofitable companies that are losing money hand over fist. So all of them were up at the same time. So that leads me to believe that this isn't necessarily a company that's performing. That's why people are buying into it and it's going higher. This also means that if things don't pan out the way that they're supposed to for that company, you're also going to see a precipitous drop in the company as well. I call this like the rise of the zombies, because all these companies are pretty much just riding on investor sentiment rather than actual fundamentals. So, I mean, this is something that
switch this around. This is really
Yeah.
weird. Vitaly's where
Yeah, it
Chris
is. It does.
I'm-
There you go.
or if you ever do listen, if you ever switch
Put me
us
back
around
there.
a
I
bit,
like being under a mitt.
if you switch us around, like if you put Vitaly where Chris is, Vitaly has to speak in Chris's voice. Okay. And if you put yourself like by me, you have to
All right,
speak
let's do it. For full episode.
He'll
Go
sound
ahead, just pretend
he'll
we're-
sound
just around.
5% smarter.
just go
and only lose 10% more money.
Oh,
You guys are
switch
both
us
up.
to-
Oh, he's
That's
frozen.
yes.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
No, I
both
think-
up significantly, so it's okay. Whatever.
That's true.
No, the point
Yeah,
that I was
very
just trying to
true.
make is that what we saw today is very unusual, but I think this is how the market is, right? With all the retail investors just getting in right now and riding the thing higher. I haven't been checking Wall Street Bets lately to see if this is one of those things that's been
check right now.
trending. But it's something to just keep in mind that this is like a game of musical chairs, right? Where you remember, guys, GameStop, how GameStop was just on this rocket of a tear, and the only reason why it was going up is because so much retail participation was happening, and then eventually it just kind of like the bottom fell out. So the question is, if you want to play this game of musical chairs and take a risk, you can and try to see where the fucking music stops and make some money out of it, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's not how investing should work, but to each his own.
I do have a topic of something that we could talk about. By the way, Chris, that would have been a great title for the episode today. Zombie companies or something like, or dead cat.
No, I can still change it, right? I can
I
literally.
mean,
change it if I
I
want.
think you should, but then when
Okay.
people click it, my joke's not going to make sense.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so I'm
My
gonna
joke
leave
at
it.
the top of the show. I was joking, Vitaly, that about his incredible skills clickbaiting the title today. Stocks were a little higher today. Now that's the weakest fucking title. You could
Can't say we don't clickbait here. Can't say we clickbait.
I
How
mean,
famous he's getting. He doesn't even need a title anymore.
That's
He's
click
like, this
repellent.
is a podcast.
Right. Stock talk number 700 and what did you say? 770,000.
737,000.
I mean, Enovix is up, by the way. Enovix is at
Enovix.
almost $20. And
Bro,
Novix,
when
whatever,
is
almost at
Enovix gonna
$20.
drop? Because we're not buying this shit at
Well,
20 bucks.
I'm
bro.
selling around 25, so hopefully after 25.
No. But that guy on Twitter Spaces says you can't sell until 136.
Well, I could sell it anything I want because I bought early.
You bought it
Yeah.
at 10. You want to
That's
sell
right,
it?
baby.
Yeah.
You think that's a decent
I did
enough
too.
gain?
I did buy. I had 2,000
were-
shares, bro. I'm
Wait,
up.
in Enovix?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got in around $9 too. Yeah.
So, Chris, are you selling at 25 as well?
I'll probably sell half the position. And I might just buy
You
some.
guys really
calls
don't
on it.
believe in Enovix, man.
No, I believe in it. It's just that
Well,
right now.
yeah, they're not really profitable. There's an argument to be made to take profit, and it could very well go right back down to 10. Let's be honest.
Or it can go to 40. Absolutely, it happens too. But I always say you don't need to own every single stock you buy. And I'm not selling all of it. Just going to take a little bit off the top. That's it.
Yeah.
And you keep the call options.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like you can trim a small position and just buy some leaps with the money, and just in case that there is some forward momentum going much further up, you still benefit significantly.
And
So-
Johnny is a big Enovix bull, by the way, and has been posting on our Discord what he's selling and everything and buying, and he has been selling Enovix, I think, since around $15 or so.
Johnny single-handedly pumped and dumped Enovix.
He's tanking the whole
from our
market.
channel.
He's
He literally
tanking the
forced
whole
us to talk
market.
about it 24/7. We talked about it. Stock went up. He dumped. It's
Yeah, you could see in the
Bro.
comments he's no longer Enovix.
Exactly.
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 Yeah, but you know his position. If you know what he's holding, you'd be talking about it too.
Now, here's the other interesting thing. While all these shit companies were higher today, the main companies that are actually profitable were down. So you had Apple lose about 1%, Microsoft was down close to 2%, Amazon was down 2%, Tesla was down 2%, Google was down 2.35%. So you're seeing this flight from quality to
Shit.
shit. It's so this is like the bizarro market that we're in right now, which is not good because long term this is not sustainable. This, things usually
I know
correct.
you say that, but let me fight against this for a minute, as I usually do. So,
For a change. Yeah,
I believe. Look, I do believe a lot in what Kathy Wood says, and other people say this too. I think Tom Lee.
No, you
also.
don't. You shit on her.
No, I can shit on her, but actually, I do believe in her long bullish thesis about a lot of things that she says. Okay, about inflation, she's correct. Tesla going to 2,000 probably a share, she's correct. She's correct about a lot of stuff. First of all, one thing she's probably correct about is that you need the breadth of the market to participate in a bull market. You can't just have the top 10, 15, 20 stocks do it. And I think what we've been seeing over the last couple of months is like a lot of companies participating, but maybe not the ones that have been totally crushed. And now they're starting to participate. So I don't know if that's a bad thing. Technically, yes, Nikola is a shitty company. It's probably going to go down, but that's how it widens out. So maybe it's the beginning of signs that we are not, that we are in a soft landing or whatever. And there's a opening to the breadth of the market. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think a lot of people are commenting in the chat. They're saying the NASDAQ is rebalancing. That's what's caused it. Be interesting. I didn't even consider that. Yeah.
There's also, isn't there a Fed meeting? I'm looking right now. Isn't there a Fed meeting coming up real soon?
So yeah, CPI is on Wednesday, I think.
Yeah.
What is that index, by the way, that tracks small cap companies?
Oh, is that Russell 2000?
The Russell 2000. So that's been crushed for years now at this point. So at some point, the Russell 2000 can't be crushed forever. It has to also participate in some sort of growth or expansion of these smaller cap companies. So, is that happening?
No, but Chris's point is that these companies don't deserve to be up. So,
well,
does Chris
get to pick who deserves to be up? I mean, like,
no, I mean, but go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from like pure metrics, like valuation and profitability, like these companies are losing money hand over fist, whether you're looking at it from a cash flow perspective or a net income perspective. Usually I could see investing in a company that's net income negative, but cash flow positive, because at least you know that the business is generating some sort of value that they can use to transform their business model in the future and become GAAP profitable, right? So as an example, like you had the Palantirs of the world, the SoFis of the world. Yeah, on a net income basis, they're actually not that highly desirable. But if you look into their cash flows, their operating cash flows and their free cash flow, it's actually, these are great companies that are trending in the right direction and deserve to be invested in and given some level of premium. My biggest problem right now is you have companies that are losing so much money, and it's not like they're losing a little bit of money. They're losing a lot of money on a quarter per quarter basis. And I wonder if these companies are just going to dilute the shit out of shareholders, issue more shares, get more cash, and just try to survive for another 2-3 more years while this whole business tries to make it work.
Well, I think somebody said you were talking specifically about zombie companies. If that's the case, then yes, that's true. There's so many of them. But they're going to pump along with all of the other, companies that have been beaten down that aren't that bad. SoFi, not the worst company in the world. Palantir, decent company, I could say. So all these companies,
actually, I was just on
all these companies deserve to come back to something more reasonable, right? That's what's been going on, or at least with the good ones that are small caps.
Yeah.
I was just on what's his name, Tanner's new show, that Stonk Tank thing.
Yes.
And he asked me to come in. We were talking about Enphase, Vitaly, and they were shocked that Palantir's market cap is larger than Enphase. And if you think about Palantir made $5, right, and like 80 cents last quarter, and Enphase is printing, and they have a smaller market cap. So it doesn't always line up with the numbers. There is a psychological component to this, right?
There's no cult following around Enphase. I mean, if there was, like, Enphase would be crazy. But
thank God there isn't, honestly.
No, if there was a cult following around Enphase, it would be $100 billion, right?
And maybe Amit could afford a real camera at that point. If he picked a stock that connects.
No, I've been telling him for the last 2 years.
Got his camera up now.
No, he's got his camera is good, but you know what he does? He records in fucking 4K. And it makes no sense because YouTube is gonna
Relax,
downstream you.
relax. My
No, no,
dad
no.
came in. I had to help him with something. That's the only reason I
All
told
right.
him.
Was he naked?
All
I mean,
right.
what the
No,
hell?
he was asking me something, and that's why I was like, because he needs something.
You
from
can't
me.
show us your dad. I would have showed you my dad.
Bro,
Yeah,
I
Hey,
would love to show you my
Papa.
dad. He's afraid of you guys. He's
You
afraid
know,
of
he's
should've been
afraid
like,
of all the of all the ladies hitting him up on the DM.
Yeah, you should have
he's just
said,
a-
Dad,
bro, he's
Dad, I'm
just-
at work. Don't fucking bother me at work.
Bro,
No,
every
you
time I'm done
should
with
have
the
pulled a
pod,
Chris and be like, "Yo, get the fuck out of here, man."
yo, that was wild yesterday. Bro.
That
That was wild.
Bring a cookie.
Sometimes you gotta
Like, "Come back with a cookie,
keep
bitch."
her in line. You gotta keep her in line, bro.
Nah, he's about
You
to
know?
smack you today. No, but like I get done with the pod and he's like, "So how many people are there?" I was like, "Oh, like 450." He was like, "Why the fuck do 450 people care about you?" I'm like, "Dad, it's the internet." He's like, he just doesn't get it. He doesn't get it at all.
It doesn't seem real.
Shit, I don't get
Right.
it.
Okay,
I gotta-
can I play 5 minutes of a full on fuck this market, it's going under bear case for you guys and get your reactions? Do you guys want to see that? Because we talked really bullish of a lot of stuff, but I think this is actually a decent bear case, and maybe this will give us a little bit of clarity on the opposite side.
Well, let's bring in Barry Knapp of Ironside's Macroeconomics. Barry, it's great to see you. I didn't realize you were so dovish. Is this a recent thing?
Well, yeah, I've been pushing back on the Fed really since the Silicon Valley Bank collapse.
True.
And, you know, you and Dom were just talking about the Treasury curve. And, you know, there's lots of discussions about the Treasury curve inversion and how long before it triggers or signals a recession and the like. And I think we have to step back, as Dom just intimated, this is really an exceptionally deep inversion, right? So there were inversions greater than 1% on a monthly basis in October of 73, right before that giant recession from 73 to 75. There was an inversion of 100 and, almost 200 basis points in December of 79, and then another one in December of 80. We've never had anything even greater than 50 basis points. And I'm measuring it by the 3-month bill against 10-year Treasury, because the 2-year Treasury hasn't always been around, but it sort of represents bank financing. So this level of inversion is extreme, and it was followed by very bad outcomes, very deep recessions. And in the case of 79 and 80, it set up a chain of events that led to the thrift or savings and loan industry ultimately collapsing. And at the time, that was 80% of mortgage credit supply. So, we're playing with fire here. And when I look through the data, I see credit growth continuing to deteriorate. Commercial and industrial loans from small banks is down to 0% growth and likely headed more negative. And I saw a lot of evidence in that labor data last week that small business employment is deteriorating as well.
Yeah.
That's the most opaque but largest portion of the employment market. And it'll be one of those things that just sneaks up on the Fed and hits them over the bridge of that nose with a ball peen hammer, so to speak.
I absolutely share your concerns, Barry. One of the pushbacks that I hear, maybe you can address it, is from people who say, well, this isn't about the banking system, or to put it differently, no one's going to cry for the banks, right? Okay, so they were mismanaged, they got into trouble, what have you. To me, I'm still scarred by the financial crisis, but they say, well, maybe this isn't the financial crisis. And so if there needs to be, some pain felt by the banks, the Fed's larger fight and more important battle is against inflation. What would your response be to that?
Well, I have a little PTSD around financial crises as well, having been a partner, senior managing director at Lehman Brothers. So right. I readily admit to seeing financial crises at every turn. But listen, the banking system, this isn't about mismanagement. The hedge for interest rate risk for the banks is cheap deposits. As I said before, having the curve inversions last for more than a month or two is extremely rare. They don't hedge interest rate risk. They get cheap deposits and the curve carries positively and they're able to lend money. If we do truly have higher for longer and keep the yield curve inverted for a year or more, the banking system won't be able to supply any credit. And therein lies the real problem. And it's not just the rate hikes. It's the fact that the Fed owns a third of the Treasury, mortgage, and TIPS market and is suppressing long-term rates.
Yes.
So it's not even allowing the banks to earn their way out of the third of their assets that they hold in government securities. Furthermore, the inflation argument, to me, just strikes me as kind of silly at this point, We're going to be at 3 on Wednesday on the headline, all items inflation. And then the core is going to decline between now and the first quarter of 2023, regardless of what happens. It's because of the goofy lag impaired shelter measures that are going to be putting downward pressure on inflation. And Powell's, core, super core services, less rent of shelter, that peaked in September of last year. And that's coming down as well. We had a 0 in that last month. So I don't even understand.
He goes on to say, I don't even understand why people are even thinking about inflation. Any thoughts on that in regards to yield inversions and I guess his overall argument about credit tightening happening a little bit more? Chris, you want to start with you?
I mean, I don't know, man. This is where the market is going to have to just adjust to what's the new normal, right? I think from a macroeconomic standpoint, we're in a good place, but that doesn't mean that we can continue that good place forever. There's been a lot of liquidity that was pumped in, and a lot of it is starting to kind of drain slowly. And the Fed's done a pretty decent job of just making sure that the rates are where they are to keep the economy pretty healthy. But let me collect my thoughts real quick while you guys talk about it, because I do have a deeper thought, but I just need a few minutes to recollect it.
I'll chime in. Put Eric's comment up. That's exactly what I did while this was on. I was sleeping.
I actually thought he had a decent bear case. That's the only reason I brought it up.
I actually don't think he was necessarily making a bear case. What he said is true. If banks can't borrow short and lend long, then it does have an effect. But the problem is that it takes a while for that effect to play out, and you don't know what could happen between now and the time that would play out. If we have another banking collapse or another one of these crypto exchanges, how do you know what is actually attributing? How do you know what to attribute, big moves up or big moves down if this is just shit everywhere? It's hard to predict. Like, what he's saying is true. I mean, what he's saying is absolutely true about the yield curve inversion, but it hasn't been playing out yet. And we don't know what's going to happen between now and the time that we would start to see that show up, right? So he makes a good point, and it's something to keep in mind. But does that mean that you don't buy companies now that have been smashed because of this? No. I mean, maybe I just stay away from banks. Sorry, Chris. But
wait, he convinced us to buy some banks.
Banks. Here's the thing when it comes to banks. They already went under a massive correction. What typically happens is when yield curves invert like this, it does take a lot of wind out of the sails of most banks, because at this point their whole business model does not work, right? You have banks make money by borrowing short, lending long, which means that you as depositors put your money in a bank, they take that money, lend it out to people for a long-term basis, and they make money on the spread. The thing is, the banks already had their correction. You're looking at most of the banks right now, they're trading way under book right now. Some of them are trading at 50, maybe 60 cents on the dollar. So if you're looking for a further correction in the banks, I don't think it's coming. So Chris,
you're saying the valuation on the banks is attractive, even though the yield conversion is still bad for the banks, but it has nowhere lower to go, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's already bottomed out for the most part. The other thing is, in a improving market, once the yield curve starts to go the other way, because what happens is typically this is the natural dynamic that you're going to see. You're going to see yield curve inverts, the recession hits, the Fed starts to lower interest rates, so people start people start like putting money to work in the other side, and end up and the reinversion where it's supposed to be ends up being negative for the banks. Okay. What it usually is, the higher interests go, banks typically make more money. I know that's a concept that's sorry, I'm just like I really need more coffee today. But basically, as interest rates
I've never
go
seen
higher,
this. Let me just enjoy. Hold on.
As banks go higher, I literally just woke up less than 30 minutes ago. As interest rates go up, banks typically make more money.
By the way,
He dreams about
I'd
banks.
love to know what you dream about.
About the TFC.
I'll tell you guys later. But
I bet you anything, Jamie Dimon is showing up in his dream tonight.
But interest rates, as they go up, banks typically make more money because they can use the money that they have to lend it out at a higher interest rates. We're in a little bit of a bizarre world where things went down really fast, so banks couldn't necessarily adjust for it. So interest rates, because they went so far up so quickly, it left the banks in a really bad position because now the banks are sitting on all these loans that they issued at 3%, 4%, that right now are technically yielding a
Losing
negative
money,
return for
yeah.
them. Because on the other hand, if you just lent it to like the federal government, you could get 5.5%, right? So all of those mortgages, all of those loans, right now they're all underwater. So basically they're trading at 60 cents on the dollar, some of them. But
Finally.
what's good is as time goes
What-
on, remember the people are paying their mortgages, people are paying their loans off. So new capital is coming in, and that new capital is going towards a much higher interest rate. So if you're buying, if people are paying their mortgages, which everyone is right now, that money comes back to the bank, and over time they get recapitalized, right? So that is a good thing about banks. Now, the other side is when interest rates go lower now, what's going to happen is usually the banks are in a bad position because now the interest rates are not as appetizing. So they don't make as much money on net interest income. But because all of their loans have already gone down so much, like in terms of valuation, when interest rates go down, those loans that they had issued at 3% become more valuable. So they end up having to trade back to par again. So if you go back, if you look at the yield curve, by 2024 and 2025, if I put a Morningstar chart up on Twitter the other day, Morningstar expects interest rates, especially on 30-year mortgages, to come back down to 4% by 2025. If interest rates go to that low again, what's going to happen is all the loans that they have on their books, they're going to be readjusted to fair market value, which is going to be a lot more closer to par, which means all their book values are going to start climbing up again. So if you have something that's trading at 60 cents on the dollar purely because on a fair market value basis, it's lower, as the interest rates go down, their fair market value ends up going back to par again, in which case now it adds right back into their book. So it's somewhat complicated, but the banks have already been sold off significantly. Most of them are in the mode of just saving up liquidity. That's their biggest goal right now. Sorry, go ahead, Carlos.
I have a question related to this. Okay. So banks can only lend out, and just so that I want clarity on this, and explain to me if I'm thinking about this correctly. So bank can only lend out a certain percentage of the money that they have, say, on deposit, because they have to keep some liquidity on hand.
Mhm.
When these rates drop, say a 1% drop in rates, am I right to think that creates an exponential amount of money that they can lend against that? Because a small drop in rates creates a larger pool of money that they can lend out. So it's not one-to-one. Am I explaining that correctly?
I'm not so sure that that's how they would do it. They would just have, based on their capital required ratios, like that's how they lend it out, saying, okay, this is how much of risk that we can take by lending
Right.
out
They have to
this
keep, say,
much money.
20%, right? But
Right.
If the rates anyway, I'm just saying, if the rates come down, doesn't that create an exponential amount of money on the other side that they can lend long?
I don't think so. The fixed dollar amount is not what's important. I mean, technically speaking, if rates go higher, that means a higher interest is coming back to them, which means that their profitability is higher, which means that they're actually able to generate more capital. So it'd be the other way around, actually. So, like right now, we have gotten so used to a low rate environment that right now feels strenuous. Now, if the Fed had slowly raise rates, we wouldn't had a banking crisis in the first place, right? The banks would have adjusted their operating metrics. They would have sold some of their loans and recapitalized themselves and generated that liquidity, so that this way, just in case that there was a bank run on any of these banks, they had enough liquidity sitting there to actually pay out the depositors.
Right.
The
But
fact that they
is it still 10%? We would talk in the chat. It's a fractional
it depends.
banking reserve system, so it's 10%.
It depends on the size of the bank, right? So that's one of the key questions that people are having. Like, if you're a systemically important bank, like your JP Morgan or your Bank of America, or you're like one of the largest ones, you're actually required to have more capital on hand that you cannot lend out because you're so goddamn big. And if you fail, it would be a much harder like a much harder thing to rescue. Whereas someone who's a smaller bank, they're actually allowed to actually stretch out their lending a little bit. Now, what does that mean for like the average consumer? The average consumer, sometimes you can actually get a better rate at a local community bank than you can at a JP Morgan Chase, right? Even Jerome Powell during the Senate hearings, he actually mentioned that he was actually rejected last minute on a home that he was going to buy from a big bank. And so he had to call up his like local regional bank, and there's local regional bank actually hooked him up and said, sure, we'll lend you this money.
How funny is that? You get an application and it's Jerome Powell. It's Jerome Powell at your fucking bank. JP Morgan's like, fuck this guy.
Most small businesses, they don't go to like the big banks for loans. They go to their small local regional banks that they have personal relationships with, especially if you go to like Middletown America. If you're trying to like open a business, you're trying to, do stuff, you have these prior long extending relationships with your bankers that you can use to actually, get capital as you need to run your business. So yeah, I think with the US, we have a very important regional banking system. The whole thing is with Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic, people are doubting whether or not there's enough of enough of a legislative cap on them, because they've actually been able to kind of like be a little bit more freer than the big guys have. The big guys are a lot more regulated. The smaller guys are like, don't worry about it. You guys are small. Anytime you have regulations come with additional costs. So these smaller banks, their operating margins are a little bit better than the big banks. But if you add regulations on top of it, they may not be able to actually survive. And so, like right now, there's a good opportunity depending on which regional banks that you have. They're trading all under book. So as interest rates go down, I think we're going to see these banks start trading closer to par, and that's what you're seeing, right? That's why you're seeing a lot of regional banks start.
And actually, I just have a question. I'll just throw it out. Just throw it out there and then see what you say. So my question is, how has this affected new student loan rates? So if you're going to college, say this year, how has that affected the new student loan rates? And for those people now, if they're paying a higher rate on that, I mean, you kind of was refinanced, but that becomes the question for people that are going into education, people that are going to college under these rates, because my loan was like 3%, and I was able
to pay 5.25%. I think that's what they have to pay.
But I'm saying you'd have to pay. You'd have to be paying, a 5 to 7% rate right now on a student loan.
You pay after you graduate. There's a window, I think, of 2 years after you graduate where your rate is frozen. Your payments are frozen, and then you start paying. I forgot what exactly it was. It's been a long time already.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, whereas on home prices, you can adjust the price of the home to account for some of the inflation or some of the higher interest rates. You can't do that. The tuition is the tuition. So if somebody went into school and was expecting to pay a 3%, or say for $60,000 college, now you get out of school right now, and the rates are what they are. Like that fucks over a lot of people. The reason why I asked that is that affects people. But
this is sort of the problem. Nobody thinks about that. 4 years from now, 6 years from now, you're not processing that. You need a degree. So when I took the loan, I don't even know. My parents took it. I don't even remember. Like nobody checked that because we had to go to school.
The APR is the last thing people check.
Yeah, we have to go to school. We have to get the degree, dude. Like nobody thinks about that part until like 6 years later.
You should be able to buy. You should be able to like buy call options on a kid when they go to school.
Let me do the
each of these kids.
Let me do super chats real quick. 499 artist here. Fed can't cut inflation with interest rates. They can only shift what assets are more attractive away from high leverage assets because the money's already printed. I think we would all agree with that. This one, thoughts on UNH. Well, I'll put this on the list. We'll look into it ourselves, and we'll come back either tomorrow or Thursday, and we'll talk about United Health Group as well.
All right. Well, Vitaly was going to say something before I
Vitaly, go ahead.
Well, two things. One is I actually agree with Chris. Banks are probably touch their lows, or we're very close to them. So I don't think there's some massive crash coming for banks, because in 2008, if all the banks survived, I don't see how this is any worse than that. So I keep going back to that.
Point.
Number two, Chris, this is a personal question. How does your wife listen to you on a daily basis? Talk about banks. I want to hear her. Okay, is she right there? Is she right around the corner? Just
because she's making money.
I don't talk about like stuff like that.
No. You must explain because I explain Enphase all day long to my wife, and she gets bored at some point. So you got to tell me, how do you do it?
That's why.
I'm more like the guy from The Big Short. What's his name? You know, that's like telling his wife like everything's a fucking bubble, everything's gonna fall down. I'm usually that guy, and my wife's like, God, I don't want to hear it. Just leave it alone, you know. But she does watch the podcast,
and she
so
does listen to
sometimes
the investment advice because she has invested in TFC and she has bought Palantir. Right?
Chris has invested with TFC with.
No. She did. He said before
did
that she
too.
bought.
I mean,
on her own
technically,
account.
technically it's me pushing the buttons
the
in her
button.
account. You know? She's my rubber. She basically rubber stamps whatever I do. I mean, she'll once in a while like veto things. Stop that! She's like texting me, man.
Right.
All right,
He's like, Vitaly's right. Vitaly's right.
What is she saying? What is she saying? What is she saying?
She said Vitaly's right. That's
Nothing. She's like chiming in about her student loans and blah blah blah. I'm like, bro, I don't really
Bro,
care.
she wants to be on the pod. She wants to have a
Nah,
microphone.
dude. She doesn't get no input.
She's the fifth junkie.
No, man.
We get the
Bro, no.
Vitaly, what happened? You said you would never, ever go on SoFi Weekly, and you've gone on SoFi Weekly.
I said I'd never go on SoFi Weekly.
Yeah, you said you would never go on that boring.
No, I said when I go on, it'll be interesting.
Oh yeah, you did say that.
Somebody
talking about.
Someone's gonna find the video now, Vitaly.
Sure, find the video. If you guys have that much time, go search for the
Someone's
video.
gonna
That's
find the
fine.
video.
You were on it, so I think you're getting more bullish on SoFi as well. Because
But he's also said he'll never buy Palantir. So if he doesn't,
Yeah,
if he ever
no.
does,
That's one company I definitely am not interested in. SoFi, I have shares in, so I would definitely discuss it. And in fact, those guys filled me in on a lot of information that I'm not following that closely. So they explained a lot of things. It was actually a good episode.
if you had listened to the podcast for the past 5 months, you'd be filled in with the information, but you didn't listen.
Just
Yeah.
so y'all know,
Just so y'all know,
I hooked my wife up with SMCI. Okay, she's good.
That's
Like she is very good. Just letting y'all know.
And that's why she listens to this bank talk.
My wife is really cute. Sometimes she'll just like send me a screenshot if she sees like Bitcoin pumped, you know, or Tesla, and she's like, "Oh, look, you know, it went up," and I'm like, "Honey, I know." You know, I know. Trust me, I know. It's cute sometimes.
I think I would be kind of cool to have a wife who cares about stocks, but I think it's also nice to have a wife that doesn't give a shit about stocks. You know, because you don't have to worry about talking about it with them.
Well,
Like,
at
could
the
you
end of
imagine
the
if
day,
your wife
they're
was a
only
trader?
listening
no matter what, you would always probably like fantasize about the opposite.
Yeah,
Because if you've ever been with somebody that's you know that is into the same things that you are all the time, you start to feel like you only have one life. There's you know, the Venn diagram is everybody's in the same circle. You want to have some overlap and things that are outside of that, you know.
that's true. Is Alibaba at all becoming more investable to you guys, given what's going on?
So here I'm gonna say something interesting. I actually looked at it today just to see what the profit would look like and how you could theoretically play this. The problem is I don't know what valuations they would sell the smaller parts of their company off would be, because they're splitting the company into like 6 different divisions. From what I heard, they're doing like, look up Ant Group, Alibaba, and buyback. So it's weird how they're structuring this deal right there, selling shares to Ant. Right, basically they're selling at a discount. The Ant Group was worth like how much money? And yeah, okay, you didn't pay the thing. So
No, I did. I don't know why it's not logged in. That's
yeah.
weird.
Okay, so but basically you don't know what the end valuation is going to be for Alibaba. Plus their cloud division was slowing down too. So fundamentally, I would like to invest in China, but I don't trust their government, man. You know, anytime their government sees these guys get too much power, they want to squash the whole thing. So I don't know. There is one company that I might invest in, which is Tencent, but I'm doing more research on it before I go. Huh?
Why?
Tencent seems Pony Ma knows how to Ma Hua Tang, or people in China know him as Pony Ma. He's a lot more like nuanced in the way that he does his thing with like the Chinese government. So he's not like the Jack Ma's of the world that's going to go out there and openly criticize, and they're not necessarily on like the target list. They just got caught up in this whole like, you know, big tech issues in China, but they're actually a very well-run company. They've been profitable, always generating things. Yeah, I would rather be in Tencent than Alibaba.
If I was asked to make a bet, I would bet you that most of these great Chinese companies, Tencent included, have probably hit their lows, or once again are close to them, just like the banks. I don't think we're going any much lower for these companies unless something fundamentally changes with China again, or they attack Taiwan or something like that. Something massive happens. So if not, then are they investable? It's possible now that they are, but once again, I'm just not interested. There's so many great American companies that are still affordable. Google's still affordable. Enphase is still down. So I don't know why you'd be speculating on a Chinese company, even if it is at the lows, when you can have just great American companies.
Did you buy more Enphase today?
I did. Actually, I bought from me.
How did I know? You bought
Oh, yeah, dude, I have a Discord. I mean, you can go check.
Was it down today or was it green?
I bought it in
was
the
up.
morning. I bought it in the morning. I wasn't looking. I just put market order. So I think I got it at 169 or something.
Oh,
which
it's
is
at
a great
175.
price. Great
It ran
price.
up today.
Yeah, I did 175, 169, 160. To me, it honestly doesn't matter. I'll just keep DCAing. So I bought for me. I bought for the kids. You know, everybody's getting a little bit of Enphase. I'm throwing it all around.
Okay. Let's move on to this company we haven't talked about in a while. This was an interesting piece from the Wall Street Journal today. Disney World crowds haven't felt this empty in years. So they did a whole piece on how the parks are losing a lot of momentum. There's not people there. It's not as exciting. The wait times are much more lighter, and that's not a good thing because that means there's not that many people. Any reason to come back to Disney to look at it as an investment at all?
Well,
$88
wait,
now.
before you say that, why do you think that's happening?
Yeah, it's weird because
It's important. It's important to know. It's important to speculate why that would be happening to understand what your potential upside is if it's something that they can control.
I don't know. Why do you think it's happening?
Well, the problem with Disney and the parks, first of all, I don't know if you looked. I think this article talks about it or some other article. The cost to go, the minimum, like if you're bare bones, you're spending like $3,500, up to $6,500, something like that. I was listening today. And if you're going all out, and I have friends who actually go all out to Disney, it's like a $10,000 trip. It's insane. So
People have it, but people have it though. People
well,
have
no,
it.
right. So after the COVID, obviously people wanted to go out and they would spend whatever just to go on a trip. But now we're returning to normalcy, so I don't think they're going to want to do that. So Disney better lower their prices. But this also affects their income, because I believe their last quarterly, it was their parks that kept them afloat, because Disney Plus is not doing that great. So is Disney a great bet long term? I don't know. If you look at the last like 10 years, it's been flat. So is
really?
it?
It's been flat 10 years?
Yeah,
Take
but
a
you
look.
buy it. But you buy it for the dividend.
I mean, it shot up, it went back down. So take a look at the chart of Disney. It's been pretty flat. And we can talk
Yeah,
about Bob
you're right.
Iger.
I'll make
But hold on, Bob Iger from 20 years ago, you're right. He did 5x the stock, but that was 25 years ago. So we're talking about now. Can he do it again? Sure. I mean, but then you're gonna have to wait 10 years.
I'll just say out loud what you're kind of hearing in the chat. I think Disney's problem is ESG, is trying to align themselves with some of the goals of ESG. You're seeing people there. Disney is evil. What are they saying?
Yeah, that's not the problem.
Go broke.
They're saying high over.
No, I think that might be the problem.
Wait.
I
But
wouldn't
I'm saying don't discredit it, Vitaly. You know, Little Mermaid was one of the biggest hits of the year. Now that they did the remake. The Little Mermaid drop is the 4th worst in Disney live action remakes. The bad news for The Little Mermaid box office drop is that it is the 4th worst movie for a Disney live action remake. 56.7 decline is only better than Alice Through the Looking Glass, The Lion King, and Dumbo. There is a real movement. I think they're forgetting that people of all political spectrums and of all types of beliefs go to Disney, and I don't think that they want to be in a place that's politicized. And as much as you try to avoid it, it's now up front and center in your face, in the parks and in the movies. And I think that's the big problem. I think this is exactly what's happening with what
Target?
happened with Target. Yeah, with Target. And
I would disagree with Carlos until I saw the Carlos thing. I mean, the Target thing. That
Carlos
Target thing was literally people saying, fuck you, Target. Why wouldn't they say
Yeah,
that?
because
And then they all return to Target.
No,
No,
they didn't.
well,
The
no,
stock's
Target-
down badly.
Yeah, the stock is down, and then but then also they pulled all that stuff. The point is, like, not everything needs to be politicized. We just don't want everything to be politicized. This
That's
idea,
true.
this
That is true.
social aspect of the ESG score, like in other words, bad companies can offset their ESG score by overdoing it on one of the pillars, right? So if you're like, that's one of the reasons why ExxonMobil was able to get a good rating. They're horrible on the environmental, and they'll work on the governance and the social side. It's basically rigging it. This is a real problem, and people are pushing back with their dollars. They're like, I just don't want to go there. You know, I don't want to go there. That's what I think. And maybe it's an oversimplified thing, but I can't see anything in the macro that would be, because it's affecting, like we said, the movies, the parks, and Disney Plus. So what one factor is going to hit all three of those things at the same time? The only thing I can think of is that it's something more about just sentiment around the company.
Look, I think you're right that not every company should politicize every issue and just should move on. Obviously, Target being one of the example, Budweiser being another example. They shouldn't do that, and
They're
it's
dead,
silly.
man. They're dying, man. They can't get it back. They keep doubling down on the shit.
We'll see what happens, but when you want to go to Disney, it's your kids who take you to Disney. Okay, they say, "I want to go to Disney World." Oh, sorry, honey. We care about ESG. We're not going to take you to Disney World. That's not how life works, dude. So I don't think that's what's happening on the bigger scale. I think the prices fundamentally going up, being it's super expensive. I don't want to take my kids to Disney. And I could give a shit about ESG. I'm not going to pay $10,000 to have a good time at Disney World.
No, but the kids,
and number two, their movies suck. The new Little Mermaid sucks. The old one is good. If you make a better movie, I will pay for it.
But it's a remake. I mean, it's a remake. There's a built-in audience there. That's one of the reasons why they do that. They research that. They know a minimum level of what that.
Well, they were wrong.
They know what it should be able to do. But a lot of people were pushing back because they're saying that's not the Little Mermaid. That's not the way. That's not what I remembered. Something's up here. And kids just inherently rejected it because a lot of the kids that want to see the live-action remake saw the original. You understand? And so it's not that kids are pushing back against ESG. They're just like, this is not what whatever.
I agree with the main point you said, which was these companies should not become politically involved because they're going to affect people's sentiment. There is something true about that. I'm just saying the larger picture is if the cost of your parks has tripled, you're going to get less people eventually. That's just the bottom line.
I don't know.
But I mean, is there data on that the cost of these parks has tripled?
Yes. In fact, the article, either this article or some other article, yes.
Let's go, Chris. Go ahead.
So I don't think it's necessarily just pricing. I think people are willing to pay to go to Disney. But what it is the younger generation, there's not really much that appeals to people. Like, try asking a 5-year-old, maybe a 10-year-old who's the target demographic, like if they give a shit about Mickey Mouse. Like no one gives a fuck. Like at that age demographic,
But listen, but much younger, having a toddler, like they do. Yeah. I think if anything, the rise of like things like Coco Melon, right? Which I don't know if you guys.
Bro, let me tell you guys.
Coco Melon, a lot of those YouTube channels, Coco Melon, Peppa Pig, like all these like YouTube channels that show up for kids. The kid doesn't care if it's $100 billion company that creates the content or if it's like a YouTube creator. Even someone like Miss Rachel. This chick's in over here in Burbank, and she's making millions of dollars a year making videos for kids. And so some of it is this, what Amit's been saying, that like the smaller content creator can compete with these massive companies that have a much higher overhead, but they're all competing for the same attention. There's only so many toddlers. There's only so many 9-year-olds in the world. And overall birth rates have gone down. So there's even less kids. So,
dude, y'all need to check out.
Here come the Peppa Pig ads.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
No, Bluey. Bluey is awesome. I don't know if anyone here has any kids.
Yeah, but I like Bluey's too.
Who's Bluey? Bluey? No, Bluey. It's a cartoon on Disney, but it's Australian, right? It's Australian.
Oh, it's Australian. Bro, I'm watching it.
It is the most wholesome. It is the most wholesome cartoon that you could believe. It's like about a family.
Is it?
Dude, I swear to God, I'm a Bluey fan. So there's I just got to show you, man, on YouTube.
I watch a cartoon.
No, bro, it's gonna get demonetized. You can't show it. We get demonetized for the billions.
We'll just bring up a picture of it. You can bring up I've never heard of it.
I'll do it.
Bluey.
Yeah,
bring up.
I've never heard of this shit,
bro. Bluey.
Oh, what type of cartoon is this? This is the most.
Well, we're not making.
Watch Bluey. Watch one episode of Bluey, and you'll be sold on
it. Like, what type of cartoon drawing is this from 2nd grade? This is your guy, Bluey?
Yeah, that's my guy.
I mean, he looks kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. I think my kid
Bluey. If you watch one episode of Bluey, you will be hooked forever.
What is the point of Bluey? What does he talk about? What is he?
What's his deal?
It's not. First of all, it's not a he. It's a she. Okay, and basically, it's a family of I think they're dogs or dingoes or whatever. But basically, they it's like different things that they have that they deal with day to day. and every day there's like new things that are happening, and it's like a greatest thing. It tells it shows parents how to be like more patient with their kids. The kids have this thing where, you know, if they don't want to tidy up a room, dude, I would say Bluey is on a next level.
Why are you watching this, Chris? Did you just decide?
Because I have a niece. You know, my
Do
niece.
you watch this every day religiously? Is this part of your
not every day, like once in a while?
If you got kids in the house, you're gonna always put that on because it's just a
Yeah.
nice way of they've always got something to watch. Trust me.
Yeah, dude, Bluey is awesome. Like in terms of messaging, in terms of how the character development is, it's really good. Like if anyone here
any of
parents,
the social stuff into the shows, or it's is it political?
No, they do it. No, they don't make anything political. They do explore different topics, but they do it in a very like tasteful way where like people actually get behind the message, and it's not just oh, you're gay, like, oh, why aren't you gay? You know, like it's such a weird thing. I don't know how to explain it, but Bluey is
Bring
awesome.
up Hale's comment at 7:48. Bluey, did someone say Bluey? All right, well, look, I'm gonna have to put that on, and I know that now all of my ads are gonna be this freaking Bluey thing. But I mean, are we really saying that that's? I don't know. Are we saying that that's the reason why? Because okay, that might explain one aspect of it, but that's not the reason why people aren't going to the parks.
I think investors are just not excited about the stock. I think no one's buying this thing.
Look, have they done a serious round of layoffs, like a serious round? I know people that work there.
It is 7,000 a year.
Acquire a lot of, okay, so they've already done that round of layoffs.
Was that the parks or was that Disney Plus?
Parks.
At the parks. Well, they've also restructured internally. But, you know,
well, the other thing is
Mickey, we got to let you go.
Yeah.
You're not pulling the weight around here.
Pack it up.
You know, the other question that I have is how all these studios are, and maybe you guys, since you're in filmmaking, you can explain this. So I don't understand why all these companies are now making direct to platform shows, right? Like if you're movies. Like if you make a movie, like a AAA movie, you're spending $200 million, whatever, to make a movie. Why are you going straight to video platform? Why aren't you putting it in the theaters, getting box office revenue for it?
You know, that's what Christopher Nolan argued about to make Oppenheimer, the thing that's coming on the 21st. I think Warner Brothers wanted him to go to Netflix or HBO, and he literally waited 2 years until he got a deal from Sony to be able to take it to theaters because he was like, I'm not putting.
But that's him, Martin Scorsese, a bunch of these like cinema purists that believe the best way to see a movie is in the theater. But unfortunately, there's just more money if you just let people watch it at home, or if you do a simulcast. Say, look, on the same day.
I don't think there's more money, bro, than people think. $17 a ticket, like.
What do you mean?
That's a lot of money.
Well, Disney Plus put out a lot of movies, and so did HBO Max. Remember, they were putting out their movies. It's only to get people in the door, but they were losing money hand over fist doing it.
Yeah, I'd imagine they.
No, but I'm not saying to put it out as part of the free service. I'm saying charge people the same price that you would charge them in a theater, that you would charge them at home to watch it the same day.
No, but I mean, you're talking about four. Let's say right now, if me and the wife go, that's 2 tickets, right? That's like $34. Or let's say it's a family of 4, a movie comes out, that's like 4 tickets that you have to pay versus just 1 TV screen, right?
So you got to know what the cut is, because they don't make every dollar out of that. You know, they don't make every dollar.
Regardless, there would be more money than high. You know?
My thing is, I've seen movies that make $1 billion in box office, and from what I know with I tried researching this. From what I know is that the first weekend of opening, usually most of the money goes to the studios, and then over time, more goes to the theater, right? And the theater usually is making most of their money. It gets to be a
50-50 split afterwards, basically.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, why not put it out in the theater, boost up the theater, get that revenue, right? Collect that all up. And then eventually 2 months down the line, you could put it on Disney Plus, HBO, whatever, for those who didn't want to go see it.
Turkstein makes a good point that marketing costs are higher for a theater flick. So but
if it's a good movie, you're gonna make money, bro.
But that's actually a huge part of the budget of these movies is the marketing costs.
Like, the problem is gonna make bank. Bro.
Okay, so the problem is, yes, Oppenheimer is gonna make bank because Christopher Nolan's a director, but you got to think most movies now are giant blockbusters, so they are going to be in the theater. AAA titles, Marvel movies, but small romantic comedy, you put it in the theater, you spend $100 million on marketing. Who's going to see it? That's the
But
question.
no one's even watching those movies. No one's even watching those movies at
Well,
home.
I'm
That's
watching them at home.
No. People
Oh.
watch it on. But if you put it in
You
top
watch it at
spot on
home.
Netflix,
I'm sorry,
people will
it's-
click. People will. My
It's
sister
such-
clicks
it's
on all
such
of
a
them.
small. It's an unfortunate. It's I don't know. It's an unfortunate result of just the saturation of content, right? The amount of saturation, the big blockbusters, the Marvel movies.
Matt
the
Money, you
comic
can't bring up
movies.
Seinfeld. That's like that's like the greatest show of all time. And comparing
is he
that to
saying?
other
No, but his
things.
point is Netflix will give you royalties. That's what his point is.
No, but I'm saying Seinfeld is a different beast. Not every
Yeah,
show is Seinfeld.
By the way,
I think
Seinfeld's overrated.
No, it's not.
What?
It is absolutely overrated.
Bro.
That's because you're 26 and you don't understand
no, it's
comedy.
overrated, bro.
No,
You
it's
guys
not.
are
You
so
actually
wrong
don't
on this
understand
one.
comedy.
No soup for
You're with
you.
me. Chris,
No
you're with
soup
me,
for
right?
you.
No
Shut
soup
up.
for
Hell
you.
no.
That's right.
Seinfeld is awesome, dude.
It's
Half the
overrated.
references
I
I
have
couldn't
no
get through
idea.
3 episodes. I'm like, what is this?
Bro, the Bosco,
garbage,
the
but-
Bosco episode
ridiculous.
was. I was
Dude.
crying.
Dude,
Bro, How I Met Your
half
Mother
the
is better than
references in your
Seinfeld.
life are
How I
probably
Met Your Mother is
Seinfeld.
better than Seinfeld.
How's
How I
what?
Met Your Mother is
Oh
better
my
than
God.
Oh
No.
God, no.
Like Dawson's Creek is better than Seinfeld.
Oh
God,
God, can you just do?
no.
Okay,
It
can
is,
you just
bro.
do? Can you
Dude,
just
you're
do-
bad at picking stocks. You don't know what comedy is. Okay, you have terrible TV show. Like,
Hold on, you're telling me
Makes
Jerry
no sense.
Seinfeld's good at
And you
stand-up?
never
Are
watched
are you
Game of
actually telling me
Thrones,
he's
and
good
you
at
never
stand-up?
watched Game of Thrones, bro. Let's put up a
Are
fucking.
you telling me
poll
Jerry
right now.
Seinfeld? He makes you laugh for 60 minutes.
Yes,
Dude, no-
yes.
You're out of your
Jerry-
mind. bro.
Seinfeld the
Yes.
show. We're not talking about Seinfeld on a comedy tour. We're talking about Seinfeld the show. Okay, and that
It's
actually
so
led
good.
to Larry David, which was part of Seinfeld, which is also a masterpiece if you watch Larry David. But of course you won't because you don't like good shit. So there you go.
No,
I
Seinfeld's
saw
overrated,
when
bro.
Seinfeld was doing his like farewell tour. I saw him in New York City, and I'm telling you, people were falling into the aisles laughing.
You're
at
talking
what
about
he
the
was
Netflix one, the one they
No,
put
no,
up on
no.
Netflix?
saying. No. I'm saying this was years ago when I was still living in New York.
The Netflix
He
one
was-
was garbage, bro.
I didn't actually see that one. I'm saying the first time he retired.
Pick up the
That
primordial
first,
light.
like,
The primordial
farewell
light
tour.
comment.
Bro.
What
He
was your
just
favorite
did-
Seinfeld episode? What was your favorite Seinfeld episode?
We need a new poll, guys. You see what I'm saying?
The Bosco episode was pretty fucking hilarious.
My favorite was opposite George, where George is like just fed up with life. So he's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just gonna do the opposite of everything. So he goes up to like this girl. He's like, I'm currently homeless. I live with my parents. I don't have a job. And she's like, sit down right here. And I'm like, bro, I tried that. I was like, you know what? Today I'm gonna be fucking opposite Chris. It didn't work out as well as it worked out for George.
You were your own inverse, Chris.
Yeah.
What you need to do is start a burner account called Inverse.
Well,
Chris.
another great episode. I don't know if you remember this, but they all stop having sex, right? And the only one
Yeah.
that gets dumber is Elaine.
Elaine. I
There's
still
just
remember
so
when Jerry
many-
had the cigar in his mouth. He's just laughing, collecting his money, dude.
Or
that was awesome.
the close talker. There was that whole episode. The
Yep.
close talk. There's
Yeah.
there's so many things that are part of what you find funny today that other shows reference them that came from that show.
Festivus, dude. I still call one of my
Festivus
friends
for
that
the
we
rest
laugh
of
at.
us.
Festivus for dude, we should celebrate Festivus. I'm telling you, like the airing of the grievances. That's like the best one. Where George's
great.
dad is like, George's dad
Yeah.
comes out. He's like, so I just want to start off. I fucking hate you because of this. I fucking hate you, and then you have to wrestle the man of the house at the end. Dude,
You know he was
you can't
offered.
make this up.
He was
Oh,
offered.
someone called out Tom Segura. Tim Will. I edited that comedy special.
I think, Amit, if you actually watch the show, like give it a real chance, watch a season or two as opposed to 2 episodes and then calling it a day.
I probably should.
Then and it's
So
on
funny.
Netflix, by the way.
Yeah,
So
you
they
should.
have it.
I
And
know,
I'm
bro.
actually-
The first episode was boring, though. I was just like,
you have to get into it. It's not something like you can just take sometimes in one episode, especially as they're forming the characters. It actually takes a little bit of time as they get better at their characters.
He
So
was
anyway.
offered 75 million for the last season, and he said
Yeah.
no because
Yeah.
he wanted it to end
Yeah.
where it ended.
Listen,
But it was
he's
like- it was like
making
Breaking
75
Bad.
million from the
It was
rights.
It was like Breaking Bad. As some guy offered him what, like $10 million to do like 2 more episodes of it, and he was like, no.
Wow.
Yeah, man, he's
Wow.
fine, man. These guys are fine. They're
Because
still getting paid.
once you hit that content virality, it's really, really hard to get that. So studios know, like, hey, there's actually worth to this, so they'll do whatever they have to and pay whatever they like. Same thing with Dave Chappelle. Dude, they tried hard to get into the third
And he
season.
was like, nope.
Nope. Yep.
All right. Do we want to take a question? Anybody? Because it's like,
Bro, it's been an hour. We got to get out of here.
All right.
So we'll be out tonight. Kelly just texted me. She said, say hi to Maddox, which I think is her son. So hello to Maddox if you're listening to this pod. That's it for us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. See what happens to the market. CPI on Wednesday, so that'll be exciting, and we'll see where we go from there. And yeah, that's it for us.
All right, later. Bye.
Thank you guys. See you guys tomorrow. Good night.
Later, guys.